So let's look at the next chord. So I'm going to select the end of what we just heard. And then again, you can hold shift or you can drag while you're click dragging. Select the next chord. I hit shift play. Sorry, that's the last half of this chord. So really the full chord is this long. Right? So that's the whole chord there. I was only listening to half of its duration a second ago. Scoot over just a little bit. Oops, I went just a little too far. I don't know why this is so slow. Maybe it's the video thing going. So now I'm going to select the last bit of that. Because hopefully this is the first portion of the second chord. Maybe it'll last around that long. Let's take a guess. Shift space. So I got to find the bass note. What it is, and if you're looking at the video, you can tell which one that I hit that seemed like the right one. What you want to start getting towards, though, doing is listening to where the bass note went from the first chord to the second chord. Did it go, it went up or down, and how far up or down did it go? So right now you can see on the right side of the screen, I still have that second chord selected. Now I'm going to add to it the first chord, and now I've got the first and second chord selected. Now here's the first bass note, which we know is an E, because we went through that E minor process. So listen to that one and have it in your head and sing it, and then try to figure out what the next note is when the second chord comes in. What's the next note that the bass does? Listen to the bass line. Here is shift and space to make a loop play. So the first one, right here, this is an E. Down from the first to the second, or go up? Down. Down. Now this brings up an important point. It's going to a note. The actual bass player played a note and then he went down to another note. But the actual pitch could be described as going up or down. Remember when you invert an interval? Remember in inverting intervals that you could do a fifth becomes a fourth? So we hear it as the nearest note that he went to is down. But he could have also gone, and that's the same note, just an octave up from what he did, as opposed to going, which is what he actually did. So it's totally cool to say, yes, he went down, and it's a good thing. But keep in mind, conceptually, he just went to another note, which could be anywhere on the thing. In other words, if he'd gone, it would sound like he went up, and yet he went to the same pitch. He just went an octave different. Did I always say that makes sense? So that's just one thing to just keep in mind as we're going. So this is it. If he went down, how far down did he go? Remember, intervals, our intervals are distances. So what's the distance? One more time, listen to it. Any ideas? Anybody care to hazard a guess?
Sounds like a D.
He says it sounds like a D. If we went from E to D,
or no, C.
Or C? Okay, if you went from E to C, what would be that distance? E down to C would be 1, 2, 3, 4 half steps, or a major third. Okay, which is... Now he actually went from here to here. Not quite as far down. Now you guessed D at first. D's the right answer. D. But this is where learning those intervals is so important. Because if I went... What is that? And actually, that's partly why I believe it's the second question of the review that we did earlier tonight was a major second of D and E. You may not think so, but I was actually planning ahead at one point that the first thing we were going to do was find the bass note on the first part of Jeremy's song, which is from E going to D, but it's descending rather than ascending. There's the major second that we were listening to in our second question on the quiz that we took earlier in the evening. So we went down a major second, E down to D. Okay, so we know it's a D something.
Way to go, man.
Good job. And that's where, and what And
what I heard was
what was
whole step.
whole step, whole step, whole step. That's exactly it.
So I second guessed myself and went to C.
That's exactly it. So now we want to find out, is D major, minor, sus2, sus4, diminished, augmented. So let's go back and just select only the D chord. Oops. Which is from approximately here to I think about there. And let's loop play that. Here's our bass note. So here's major, and here's minor, and here's augmented, and augmented. That's augmented. This is diminished. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. sus2, sus4. But I think all of you went, yeah, I think it's major. I think we all did, right? So here's shift play. All agree it's major? So it would be like E minor, D, autumn leaves. So it's D major, so I don't need to touch it. But so far, we've gotten those two. Now, if it's how many beats does E minor last? Just the E minor by itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. That's what that thing that went over and over and over. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it to you. It lasted for 2 beats. I could also put a half note if I wanted to. And D also lasts for 2 beats, whole half. There's my 4 beats. So I'm going to scooch ahead. Okay, so here's the D chord that we know about. So I'm going to start right around here and just listen until I hear where it changes again. We start just a hair earlier than that. I think I cut it off. Again, we're listening to the bass. Listen to the bass. Starts just a little bit later, actually. Now what he does, the bass player, if you listen, he goes boom, like he's getting ready for the next one. Okay, so that one's something we have to talk about here. But here's just this 3rd chord in the song, loop play. Yeah. Okay, so we found it.
We're confused.
Now, the real trick is if you can listen to all of it and hear the E, D, and then the next one, okay? That's the real trick. Here, I'm going to hit shift play for a second. Does it go up or down? Now the trick is do, and from this note up to the next one, what's that interval? Oh man, I should have been doing more ear training on intervals. Dog it. Now you know why. Okay. Anybody but a wild guess except Bobby, because she's got a good ear. Okay. Anybody besides Bobby who can take a guess? Being wrong's not a bad thing. At least you're going after
Perfect fit.
He says perfect fifth. Anybody else got a guess? Hazard it? Should I do the scale? What'd you say?
3rd.
You say 3rd. You say 5th. Okay. Now here's, on this particular one, I'll do.
Perfect 4.
That's the scale. I'm just at the D major scale. Just. And the interval is. So it went 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Never listen to me.
Okay. One up to 4.
Comes the bride.
Here fat and wide. No, never say the second line because that gets people mad at you.
Oh,
Here comes the bride, all dressed in white, right?
yeah.
Okay, so what's a perfect fourth above D?
G, A.
He says G, you say A, perfect fourth. You can count them in letters. D, E, F something, F sharp, G, G's a fourth. It is a fourth, so it's G.
Oh, that's why
I counted wrong. I'm sorry, I'm so bad. I need to just shut up.
No, I was picturing the module 4.7.
Oh,
The
yeah.
minor, major, minor.
Yeah.
Exactly. And see, the more you do this, the better you get. The only reason why this seems weird or hard and a struggle is because you haven't done this a bunch. Okay? I was in the exact same place you were back years ago when I was just starting off, and I did this exact process, but we didn't have computers. We had tape players, and we had to rewind and rewind and rewind, and it wouldn't be quite into it with the piano. It was a lot harder. Okay? But I went through this same process, and then I did this about 10,000 times. I'm not even exaggerating. Okay? So now, because I've done it so much, I can hear it go, a 1, that's a 6, down to 5, down to 1, because the tonal center's in G, and I can hear it, and for the most part, if it's not fast, I can just write it out as I'm hearing it, okay? But that's only because I did it a bunch. So you can do it too. It's totally achievable. Just doing it a bunch.